How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your weekly forecast of what the fuck is going on in the universe. And I am here with one of my great friends, Nate Craddock of Soul Friend Astrology, here to help me out get this horoscope.
Howdy, y'all. What is up? Are we good?
We're on about take 10.
Take X.
I'm on zero sleep. We're in Buffalo, New York. We're just closing up the State of the Art of Astrology conference. We're literally like the last people here, so we're just going insane at this point. But we're here to give you some great astrology. So let's get into it.
It's going to be the greatest astrology.
The greatest
just
astrology.
The best, just incredible.
So starting off this week, starting off your Monday today, we've had the moon in Aries, you know, getting things done, getting things accomplished. There's not a whole lot going on today, even with talking about last week going into this week. It's not like it's the biggest astrology day in the world, so this moon in Aries may be a little bit more focused emotionally, may feel a little bit more impulsive, may feel a little bit more angry or frustrated, and that's okay. You're gonna feel that certain way. But as soon as we go in tomorrow—
You're gonna feel some kind of way.
Yes.
About a lot of things.
But this is important because as we go into tomorrow, the sun will ingress into Scorpio and Scorpio season begins. Where, if we're going to be honest, this has been one of the weirdest Libra seasons and not most unenjoyable. I mean, like Venus had a square to Saturn while she was in domicile. She's retrograde right now. This has not been a fun or a usual Libra season.
And the sun was trying to Mars the entire time. From the sign of Mars's fall. No, not the sign of Mars's fall. Jesus, the sign of Mars's detriment. So Mars has not been listening to anything that the sun has been trying to tell him this entire time. But now,
now we're in Mars's game.
Now we're in Mars's game.
The sun is in Scorpio. This is all coming to life. And when I say that, we're talking about Scorpio things, we're talking about more emotional things, we're talking about more precise, controlling issues. And so when we have the sun right here, it's lighting up this whole area. We're looking at Venus being retrograde, we're looking at Mercury in Scorpio, we're still looking at Jupiter in Scorpio. So a lot more of the Scorpio stuff is just going to be coming alive and going out kind of raw. What else is going on Tuesday? Oh yeah, the sun's going to be opposing Uranus exactly. Right as it ingresses into Scorpio, and that's really important.
Shining a light straight into it.
And as Uranus is in Taurus, and as we've been talking about in my past videos, with Uranus and Taurus, we're trying to find a new ground and get a creative way to kind of hop from iceberg to iceberg, you know what I mean? Uranus and Taurus is shaking up the ground underneath us, and we have to find a way to find a comfortable ground. It's kind of like being able to be stable on ice that's melting. And so with the sun being in Scorpio, it's face-to-face. Uranus is as close to Earth as it gets in our little orbit. And with that being said, all this Uranus stuff is going to be coming out really fully alive. I mean, we talked about my full moon horoscope. And with the sun being in Scorpio right now, this is making it more of a intense thing. Rather with Libra, it's been very, okay, you know, everything's chill on the surface. Once the sun goes into Scorpio and opposes Uranus, this is going to feel immediately a little bit more charged up than usual.
The other thing I would add about the sun's opposition to Uranus at the early degrees of Taurus and Scorpio is that whatever started to come into being when Uranus initially ingressed into Taurus earlier in this year, we may see the spotlight hit some of those things. So, for instance, if Uranus entered your 4th house and you had some kind of tense communication with your parents when that ingress happened, that fight may come back to the surface during this Sun-Uranus opposition. So be on the lookout for that. Anything that was really disruptive when was that ingress? Early May?
May, I think like 7th or 8th, something like that.
Anything that began to be disrupted, look for that this week to come to the fore in a way that you perhaps weren't expecting, because nobody ever expects light in Uranus.
This is true.
That was the second time I made that joke, and he didn't get it the first time, and I'm really disappointed.
I think I've heard it. I didn't hear it the first time, otherwise I would have laughed.
It was too subtle.
Moving forward, though, because other than that, like the moon's squaring Pluto and sextiling Mars, so I mean, like, yeah, the moon's going to be in Aries squaring Pluto, but let's more look at the sun being in Scorpio opposing Uranus. Moving forward into Wednesday, guess what we have on Wednesday, guys? What do we have on Wednesday?
Shit, what do we have on
Wednesday? It's the full moon in Taurus, and it's squaring the nodes, and it's on top of Uranus. So in case the sun opposed Uranus thing wasn't loud enough for you, the moon was like, let's make it a really big deal.
The thing with this full moon is that it is at what we call the northern bending. That means the full moon is at the highest latitude away from the celestial equator that it can be, from the celestial equator and from the
English North Node.
No, not the North Node. So the moon goes further in northern latitude after it passes the north node. So this full moon, if you're in the northern hemisphere, it'll be really far up above the horizon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So physically, we're going to see a lot more illumination during this full moon, unless, of course, there is cloud cover. But thematically, again, it's going to be an additional light shining on that Uranus stuff. So again, whatever's happening with Uranus, whatever the disruptions are happening there, you're going to feel little pings of those come to the fore as the moon continues to illuminate it and transmit the light of that opposition to us here on Earth.
Exactly. I couldn't have said that literally any better. And it's also trining Saturn too. We do have Venus sextiling Saturn on that day, and this is also highlighting Venus. So again, I mean, we talked about this in the full moon horoscopes, but Wednesday's going to be lit. So if you want to know more about Wednesday, watch your full moon horoscope. Literally lit.
Literally lit.
So then moving forward onto Thursday, not too much happening on Thursday. We have the moon squaring Mars as it moves forward in Taurus. And I mean, we've seen a lot of that Taurus and Aquarius energy square over this summer. So especially as the moon goes into Taurus, where it's kind of like cultivating, or after it starts its waning phase.
Yes.
I always get the two mixed up.
phase.
The waning phase. As we go into the moon in Taurus, it starts to wane. It gets away from this full moon. Now it comes down to, where do we need to ground ourselves? Where do we need to solidify? Where do we need to find security and stability in this chaos? In this, I don't want to say, chaos is a very loud word. However, I would like to...
But it's also a very Uranus word.
It's also a very Uranus word. So it's really just about finding that grounding, finding that stabilization. It's squaring Mars, and Mars in Aquarius has been very rough. It's on his ascendant right now today. And so trying to find the right maneuver, trying to find the right connections, trying to basically make the right decisions and take the right actions while being emotionally in integrity with yourself, and being able to, you know, this whole Mars retrograde, we've been really rewriting.
Venus retrograde.
I know, I'm talking about the Mars retrograde.
Oh, yeah,
With
yeah.
the Mars retrograde,
You're
we've really
correct.
been rewriting about our actions and how we're really going about things. And this moon squaring Mars right after this full moon is really going to be confronting of what action steps do you need to take. And like I've been saying, where have you been needing to get out of your comfort zone? Where have you been needing to let go of control? And how can that better help you and assist you take the right actions?
And this is actually a really interesting, I mean, it's not really interesting, but it is an opportune moment for the moon to be squaring Mars, because the moon is squaring Mars from Mars's, because this is the Taurus full moon. Right, it's the disseminating Taurus full moon. I had the chart flipped in my head. So actually, the moon will be squaring Mars from the sign of Mars's detriment, which is going to make that square even more intense than it otherwise would, because the moon is going to present something to Mars that the moon would like to do, and Mars is going to say, "Ha ha, go fuck yourself." So Mars is not going to do that. So again, there's that tension.
Yes.
Right, that tension element. So especially if you know where Taurus is in your chart, and you know which sign or which house the moon rules in your chart, the things signified by the house that your moon rules, whether that's illnesses. So I'll use my example. It's illness and health and that kind of thing. So I might expect the fact that I've been going so hard this weekend.
It's going to all catch up.
It will catch up with me, and I'll be in bed for 3 days with some kind of sinus infection later this week.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And also on Thursday, the moon's going to be in opposition to Mercury. So while Mercury's in Scorpio, wanting to investigate, wanting to dig deeper, wanting to just get really critical and down to it, as the moon opposes it, it's going to be a really big time to, if you're going to be digging that stuff up, know what you're going to be finding. It's kind of like, you know, if you're going to go, grave digging, know that you're going to find a dead body. So moving forward, on Friday, we have Venus Cazimi at 3 degrees Scorpio, when Venus conjuncts the sun, and we have a whole new fresh start for the Venus synodic cycle. This is really why I brought Nate on here. I wanted him to talk about this. So tell us a little bit about Venus Cazimi.
So as Cam mentioned, that the Venus Cazimi is literally when Venus is in the heart of the sun, when Venus is being reborn. She's entering into a new, what we call a synodic cycle, which is her trip all the way from this point where she is closest to Earth, all the way around the sun and back to that point, which takes about 18 months. So on the Venus Cazimi day, the Venus is the closest she will be to Earth. She's completely invisible. She's being rekindled and renewed and refreshed in the heart of the sun. And as she moves out of the heart of the sun, she'll be vulnerable, like an infant. So it's really still not a great time for Venus things to be happening right now, but we're kind of on the other side of it. And especially as she leaves Cazimi and then ingresses or retrogresses into Libra, since she's moving backwards right now, she'll be back in her own home domicile. But the thing with the Venus Cazimi is this punctuates the Venus cycle, right? So
puts like a pin in it, basically.
It puts a pin in it, and it's like, okay, there's that one, and we're going to start the next thing. So you may know already, I'm not sure the extent of your viewers to what extent they already know about the Venus cycle, but basically every 8 years, Venus stations retrograde in the same position in the zodiac that she stationed 8 years ago, maybe off 1 or 2 degrees.
It goes back 2 degrees, I think, every 8 years, something like that.
2 degrees. So a great way to think about how this will impact you is to try to think back to 8 years ago. What was happening in your life? What was going on? Was it something related to higher education? Was it something related to finance? Was it something related to your parents? Was it something related to your kids or to your creative work or to your career? What occupied the most attention during that time? Now think about that and fast forward to 8 years. Those things will be reactivated for you now. And you'll probably already know what that is at this point because Venus has been retrograde for some time now. However, this is the turning point in the cycle where whatever has been brought up, so a lot of times during Venus retrogrades we have like weird contacts with exes or something like that. Because Venus,
it's just don't question.
Oh, especially because it's in Scorpio.
Yes.
So it's dredging up all that kind of shit. But now this is the time where the shit gets purified and we find the diamonds in the rough.
Yes.
So to speak. So be ready for that. That does not necessarily mean it will be easy, because emotional work like this is never easy, especially considering that Venus is still in the sign of her detriment. But Venus in detriment in Scorpio will go deep, and she will say what needs to be said in order to get what she needs to get done. Venus in Scorpio is an energy that, if not managed well, can become dangerous and possessive. But if it is managed well, and if you do the work during the season of incorporating Venus into your life in such a way that you and she have a good relationship with each other, and you are learning about your relationship styles, and you're learning about your proclivities in relationships with other people, whether those people are partners, friends, parents, coworkers, whatever, that can be a really healing thing, right? And for those of you who maybe have Venus in Scorpio natally, you may experience this as the feeling of, I need to be needed. There's this kind of obsessive or intensely powerful feeling of needing to have value to someone, needing to have that deep fixed emotionality in terms of your bonds with other people. So this is also a great time, especially for those of you who have Venus in Scorpio natally, to be doing some of that additional work. That's not to say at all that anyone with Venus in Scorpio is a psychopath. That's not true. That's not true at all, because sometimes planets in detriment in our chart can become focuses for us to do healing work in our lifetimes right now, right?
Amen. Detriment gang.
She come in a Honda.
So
right.
That's happening on Friday. The moon will be opposing Jupiter, and the moon will be entering Gemini at this time too. So expect things to start being a little, not necessarily chaotic, but as the moon goes in Gemini, new ideas, new ways of thinking, just take everything in. This isn't a big time to necessarily make decisions, have ideas. Just take everything in, write everything down, and just go along with it as you go with it. On Friday as well, I'd also like to make the mention that the North Node is hitting 0 degrees Leo, and we're getting very, very close to that North Node moving into Cancer, and that is going to be a bigger deal as we get on later on the next few weeks. But I just wanted to make that note for a future reference. Later on, though, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, not the biggest weekend ever. Like, literally this week is the full moon in Taurus and the Venus Cazimi, and we get a pretty nice break from the universe.
And if you don't know what else to do, take a nap.
Exactly.
That's how you survive any astrological transit.
On Saturday, the moon will be trining Mars while it's in Gemini, and it will be squaring Neptune. So again, this is going to be a little bit easier to kind of move along with things. However, we have the moon squaring Neptune. Like, it's not, you're going to be kind of seeing through the fog. You're going to be kind of taking that illusion off, and it's not going to exactly look maybe the way that you expected it to. But the biggest thing is, like I said, just be open to what you're receiving, be open to looking for things, and just keep writing everything down. Take mental notes of everything. Don't make too many quick decisions on it. As we get into Sunday, and Sunday and Monday actually, we have the moon moving into Cancer, making its opposition to Saturn, making its trine to the sun and to Venus. So as the moon moves into the Cancer, as we go into this time next week, it's going to feel a way different vibe versus this full moon in Taurus where everything's erratic, Venus Cazimi where it's like we have to get real raw and deep at that exact moment, at the exact feeling. By the time we get into next week when the moon moves into Cancer, this is a really big time to where do we need to nurture ourselves? If we want to take these new forward movements, if we really want to basically utilize what astrology is trying to give us, this moon in Cancer is going, let's focus on where we need to nurture you. Let's focus on what we need to give you. Let's focus on where we need to protect you.
Especially as the moon in Cancer comes to trine that Cazimi point in early Scorpio. I think if there is an intense lesson that is learned as part of this Cazimi, that moon coming to trine Venus from that really lovely trine angle will be an opportunity to do some healing work around whatever that thing is.
Now the other thing though is that it's opposed Saturn.
Yeah.
So this isn't like, you know,
still
like,
not going to be great.
We don't get a big powwow, or we don't get a big hug, a big hug.
No.
We do get a serious look though at giving ourselves the emotional healing, that nurturing that we do really kind of need to give us a little bit of pep start moving forward into next week.
It's tough love is what it is.
It's tough luck. And also, my last note on Monday is Mercury conjuncts Jupiter in Scorpio. What I'd like to say is all shall be revealed. Only because with Jupiter being in Scorpio, where we've been kind of like, yeah, we got skeletons in the closet, but what do we believe about that? How do we feel about that? Mercury in Scorpio is kind of like, all right, it's getting more specific, it's getting more precise, it's getting more emotionally raw. As those two conjunct, and they kind of have a brain blast is the best way to put it, in Scorpio, expect to have a lot more of that raw feeling coming out. Expect to have a lot more of that understanding and that clarity, but it's definitely going to be a bottom line truth, not necessarily so much a, well, what else could it be? It can't be anything else but that.
I mean, it could be a lot of things depending on house rulerships in your natal chart, but essentially, there's going to be a lot to say about deep, dark shit, so get ready for it.
And it's going to be expressed, and it's going to be communicated. And so with that all being said, this week is really about realization, feeling, accepting it, and communicating it, expressing it, getting it through. This week is going to be, it's pretty much the most wild week of October. So after this, it gets a little bit easier. Like, come on, don't forget, we have Jupiter going into Sag. Don't give up yet. We're still got time.
We're almost there.
But with that being said,
we made it.
With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching all my videos, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. Nate, where can they find you and your amazing shit?
You can find me at soulfriendastrology.com and on Twitter at Ryan, R-Y-A-N, Caradog, C-A-R-A-D-O-G, all one word.
You guys need to follow him, check out his blog, check out what he does. And thank you guys again so much, and I'll be seeing you guys next week.